Is this a buyer's market or is it a seller's market? This is Ron Weiss-Sikarski for the Black Hole of Real Estate. And I tell my wife all the time when she gives me an option of two things, I say, you know what? I'm a both guy. If I have a choice between steak and pasta, I'm just going to say both. And I think that's the case with real estate right now. You see, it's a market where a buyer can win. It's a market where a seller can win, and each for their own reasons. And it's absolutely a case where no one necessarily has to lose if you think about what's most important to them as opposed to negotiating every last dime out of a deal. Now, let me explain this. If someone is selling and they need to move on, and they need some money to move on, is price the most important thing? Now, it can be when you're selling, because maybe you've got to cover a mortgage and real estate fees and closing fees and whatever else has to come out of the equation. And within that, the money might need to be divided up. Maybe it's an estate. Maybe there are multiple owners, that are not like family members or not married or things like that. And, it could very well be that maybe the people selling a house are splitting up. So sometimes the money has to be divided and you need to account for that in a way that makes sense to everybody while still making the sale. So within that, is price the most important thing? Possibly, but I would add in the word closure. You see, in each one of those situations, money absolutely is important, but closure, having it done and over with, so to speak, that could be a really good thing for the people that are selling the property, and I want you to keep that in mind. Now, on the other side, what about a buyer? Is this a buyer's market? Well, it can be, because there's good deals to be had. And on the first few days of a listing, sometimes we see a lot of interest, a lot of showings, and sometimes multiple offers. And yet, you know what? Recently, we've had a couple go above the list price. Now, there's a reason for that. Sometimes, in order to effect a very quick sale, a property may get priced exactly where the agent, seller, whoever is in there thinks it's going to sell, or maybe even just a little bit lower to create competition. And that way they'll have more than one offer to choose from on the very first weekend of a home sale. And that creates multiple offer situations, highest and best offer situations. And then the seller gets a chance to look at the offers, and maybe they want cash and quick closing. Maybe they want the most amount of money, and closing time could be 15 days or 65 days, and it wouldn't matter so much if the money is right. And I think for a buyer in that situation, they may absolutely go the extra yard to buy the property. Now here's why. If you've been looking for 3 months or 6 months or even longer, and it finally came across your plate that here's a property that you really like, you have to ask yourself, am I going to have to wait another 3, 6, or 9 months to see another property I like just as much? That urgency might get that buyer to make a move on that property. So back to who's winning and who's losing in this market, I think we're in a balanced market right now. And that's at a time where they would say there's a 6-month supply of inventory. Now, I understand that real estate in certain areas may have more inventory than needed or less inventory than needed. But right now in our market, it's pretty balanced right now. And I think a buyer and a seller can win for their own reasons. And it's not always about price. Now, if you're all about the price, hey, there's a market for you. But I'll tell you what, if you're pricing your property, selling it in such a way that you want pricing from 2-3 years ago, my suspicion is you're going to be on the market a super long time, probably not sell, and maybe have to switch an agent or switch a strategy somewhere down the road to try and get it sold. And if you're a buyer hoping for, 2008 pricing, that's going to be a long wait. I don't see that happening at all. So it's probably not about price. It's about getting a deal that makes sense with timing, terms, and price. And that's the way this market is moving right now. So that's a lot for you to think about right now. Personally speaking, I'm buying properties, and I just put another one under contract to sell. So I am buying and selling personal properties in this market, and it doesn't mean that you should. I'm just confident enough in this market that I'm a buyer and a seller, and I think there's more people thinking that way. If you got questions, drop them below. Definitely subscribe. Let us know what we are doing to help you in this real estate market. And most of all, we'll catch up with you soon on the Black Hole of Real Estate.